Good evening, everyone. Welcome at the Balie. A warm welcome, of course, to you, the audience here, those tuning in from home via the internet, and everyone on Salto TV. My name is Yoeri Albrecht, director of the Balie, and it's a great, great honor to once again engage in conversation with a woman whom I greatly admire for her fearlessness and courage. Zineb El Rhazoui, born and raised in Morocco, studied theological sociology, among others, and fled her country due to discrimination against herself as a woman and the censorship imposed on her as a journalist. Once in France, she worked, among others, as editor of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, and one of the sole surviving editorial members of that editorial board. She survived the terrorist attack of 2015. She became one of the most heavily guarded residents of France. We visited you in 2018, I think. You were guarded by 7 people with long rifles. And everybody said you were better protected than the French president. At least it made quite an impression. Heavily guarded. Nevertheless, she never stopped from speaking out passionately on the dangers of radical Islam, universal human rights, feminism, and the right to the freedom of speech. And this is the 3rd time we've invited you, Zineb El Rhazoui, to speak at the Balie. First time, like I said, in 2018, International Women's Day in March. After that, we invited you back, and the Dutch state couldn't guarantee your safety, so you decided not to come, which was very well, we used very well to point out the problem with not protecting people who speak out, the problem for our societies and our democracies. And that's why I'm especially pleased and honored that she's here again today, 6 years after our first conversation. And much has happened in the meantime, of course. The war in Israel and Gaza, among others. A war my guest is very outspoken about. And this year she lost the prestigious Simone Veil Prize, which was given to you in 2019 and revoked last year because of it was given to you of your fight against radical Islam and revoked on your outspoken being outspoken on the war in Gaza, which is quite peculiar, if I would say, if you'd given a reward for the freedom of speech. Interesting. We're going to talk about that as well. The public debate in Europe is intensifying. Freedom of speech is under pressure. We noticed that here in the Balie, almost every day, we got internet attacks on our servers from Iran, from Russia. We got threatened quite often, so we do notice. Despite that, our guest has always continued to speak out. And tonight, I hope to discuss all these themes with you, speaking out in turbulent times. And we invited you, of course, because if anybody has the right to talk about freedom of speech, it's most probably my guest tonight, who made many, many sacrifices, personal sacrifices, to be able to raise your voice. So, if I may say so, give a very, very warm applause to Zineb El Rhazoui, please. You don't have that many escorts as you had last time, don't you, when we first met?
No, I don't.
Is that because you're more safe, or is that because you decided not to?
I hope I'm more safe. I hope I'm safe, and I hope that everyone is safe. But I was tired of that. I felt the need a few months ago to just walk alone, freely, in the world. And I also did a lot of introspection work these last years, and I understood that security is something that you can find inside you. It's a feeling, it's a vibe that you can find inside. And it just gave me the courage to start feeling safe without security protection, because it's not a life, you know. Sometimes you just need to be free.
Okay, yeah, I do understand though, of course. It's a mental thing, among other things, to feel free.
Yeah, well, I like the guys. I've been now protected since January 2015. So I know the guys in France, particularly. Some of them became friends, and I have friends here too. You know, whenever I travel to a country, I see the security officers, and because you know it's the relationship that you have with the people who protect you is a very particular relationship. Basically, there are people you don't always know, but you're supposed to die together if something happens. So it creates a kind
of... It's a bond.
Yeah, exactly. It creates a very special bond. And because you are, you know, some of the French guys I had stayed with me 3 years, so they knew everything about me. They knew where I like to eat. They had my mother's phone. They knew who were my friends. They knew where I bought my clothes, when, the kind of doctors. I mean, they really knew everything about my life. And so I prefer to see them now as friends, but not to have them all the time with me in the daily life.
Many things have happened. You moved from France basically to Dubai. Not all the time, but you live most of the time. You live in Dubai, if I'm not mistaken. And you said in an earlier conversation we had over WhatsApp, I think, you said in many ways I feel more safe and free there, which is interesting. To me, I've never been there, of course, but it doesn't come across as too free, or maybe safe, yes.
Yeah, it's quite paradoxical. I landed in Dubai because in the year of the terrorist attacks in Charlie Hebdo, I met my husband, the guy who became my husband. And he is a Frenchman, but he's expat in Dubai. So I was like, am I going to go to Dubai, to this Bedouin? You know, I had a lot of cliches to this, you know. And I have to admit that the more I stay there, the more all the cliches I had on this area of the world appear to be, well, some of them are true, but some aren't at all, or at least they offer a more interesting perspective. And it's very paradoxical, yes, to feel safe in Dubai, because it is one of the safest places in the world. It is a place where no one closes their home's door or their car's door. It's a place where you can just put your handbag with your phones in the beach and go run for 2 kilometers and come back. You're absolutely sure you're going to find it. No one will touch it. And as a woman, and this is even more paradoxical, people still ask me in France, oh, do you wear this when you go to Dubai? I said, no, I wear this actually in Dubai.
This is the trousers.
There's a very short something, you know, as a woman, you are free to wear whatever you want to wear there. And it's the only country where I come across a Taliban guy walking in the street, and I'm wearing shorts, and I feel absolutely safe. I know he can do nothing. I have to admit that, well, it's sad to say, but I don't feel that same freedom everywhere in France. But yeah, things aren't always as they appear. Now, I wouldn't say that the Emirates has the same type of freedom as in European democracy. Of course, it's not the case. But in the daily life, for me, it's a kind of retreat, you know. I feel it's a safe place for me. Yeah.
It's a bit of a paradox. So you would say, isn't that also because it is an authoritarian or a dictatorial regime?
You know, since I started living in Dubai, I had to face many paradoxes. Because, of course, if you have that kind of safety, it's also because there is no debate on certain things.
No, on a lot of things.
And I was like, Yeah, but is that acceptable? I found that actually that this is what this recent war is also showing us in Western Europe, you know, and particularly in France. Many things we believed were rights, many things we believed we had, actually we didn't have them. So for instance, in France, the law, sure, theoretically, is more beautiful, more human rights compliant than the law in the Emirates. But in the Emirates, the law is applied. I found out that, for instance, in France, we have freedom of speech on paper, but in facts, we don't have it. It's wrong. Certain people have it for certain subjects, but for other subjects, no. It's only a theory. So in the Emirates, let's say it's another model. I'm not saying it's better, but everyone is equal in censorship.
You mean that on paper there's no freedom of speech, so at least you know that everybody's equal? Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the Emirates, for instance, there is no... It's a very particular model. It's banned to demonstrate, but it's banned to demonstrate for anything. In France, for instance, it's banned to demonstrate for Palestine, but you can demonstrate for Israel. Of course, the French people still demonstrate for Palestine, but they had to brave an absurd reality, which is, for me, not respectful of what freedom is truly. But you wouldn't, yeah. And from the point of view, of course, that it's on paper, not even for a feminist, it's the rights of women and men are not the same, of course.
Yeah, the right are not the same. That's sure. Like we know that in all Arab countries, there is not a single Arab country where you have equality between men and women, but it's not an exception in the world. Also, as a woman in France, for instance, I noticed, particularly as an outspoken woman, I'm not protected against attacks like, you know, for instance, when I used to criticize Islamism in France, I had a lot of haters, basically Islamists, who attacked me a lot on women's stuff, you know. When you are a woman, of course, you are a prostitute, you are a slut, you are slut-shamed, you are a bitch. And France did not really protect me against that. At least, for instance, in the Emirates, I don't have to deal with that, with this toxicity in my daily life. No one calls me a slut.
Not on the internet as well?
Well, on internet, but on the French internet, in the French debate, because not
on the local.
Yeah. So. Same with, for instance, you know, when this war started, for me it took me time to speak publicly. In the beginning, I just wanted to stay away from the horrors that we were attending since that day, since October 7th. It took me almost a month to find the courage to come back again to the public speech in France, because I was basically attending the public debate in this country that is, you know, I was taught as a French citizen that this is the country of human rights and this is a civilized place. But I was attending for a month people explaining that kids are not the same, that victims don't have the same value, that victims of October 7th, they worth our solidarity and they worth the condemnation, but the victims of October 8th, October 9th, October 10th, October 11th, 12, 13, till today, they don't deserve this same humanity. And I couldn't believe such a thing was happening in a country like France. I couldn't believe that actually I was, you know, when I came out as a support for Palestinian people, I did it because no one was talking for them in France. And you know why no one was talking? Because people were terrified to do it. And this is not normal. People were really scared for their jobs. They were scared to be called anti-Semites. They were scared to be called pro-Hamas, because these were the methods, even in such a democracy as France. And me, because I have my past in Charlie Hebdo, and because I spoke out against Islamists, I recognized immediately the same hatred, the same oppression towards freedom of speech, even though the subject is different.
And that led to the cancelling of Simone Veil's prize. You were giving in 2019. Would you? And that was, they said, among other reasons, but they said that was because you retweeted something which called the Israeli state a Nazi state. That was drawing the comparison between the two and calling it a Nazi state. Would you understand that people would see that as anti-Semitism, or how would you?
I don't think
about that, because it's called after a Jewish woman, of course, by a Jewish family. How would you look upon that?
First of all, I don't know how it's happening here in the Netherlands, but I wish that in France, public debate could stop to be controlled by watching who liked who and who retweeted who.
Yeah, right.
This is really like very bad for public intelligence, you know, like comparing people, assuming that because I liked your tweet, so I like the same music you like, and I support everything you support, and you make me endorse views that finally you project on me that are not even mine. So this is on the first side. Second side,
that's about sort of the toxic influence of social media in a public debate.
Yeah, and second aspect, would I understand if anyone is hurt or anyone understands that? Yeah, sure, you know, I'm not responsible of what people understand, first of all. And second of all, being hurt is a universal thing, you know. I think that anyone can be hurt from any different positions, but this is not an excuse to shut people off. This is what I used to say also when I was working in Charlie Hebdo. Some people told me, would you understand that people are hurt by Charlie Hebdo's work? I say, yes, of course. In that case, I invite them not to buy the newspaper, not to read it. It's not compulsory to read it. So to come back to this retweet, actually, I remember very well. It was, I mean, we were in late November, so it was weeks and weeks of killings, of massacres in Palestine, and there is this Jewish man who does this tweet where he compares, the Israeli regime to the Nazi regime in terms of approaches in killing. And I retweet this. So this was the reason why the Simone Veil Prize was withdrawn from me, because I retweeted a Jewish man who said this. What I understood, you know, the threats of withdrawing the prize came before I started to receive messages from people I know telling me, oh, you're talking for Palestine, we're gonna take the prize from you. What I said was, what I understand from Simone Veil's legacy, she said, never again. She said, never again. I understand it as never again for everyone, for all humanity.
Not specifically for Jewish.
Yeah, not only for Jewish people. I personally find this is very offensive towards the victims of Shoah to say that their legacy is only for Jewish people. I think it was something universal.
Yeah.
And so I responded, if this is what the Simone Veil Prize means, I'm glad and proud to have that prize. But if it means to approve the crimes of the regime of Israel, I would be very happy to give it back in a garbage bag.
Yeah.
And actually, so the grandson of Simone Veil, whose name is Aurélien Veil, he is, obviously he is the one who controls who gets the prize or not. You know, in France we beheaded the king to get rid of dynasties.
Quite a while ago, yeah.
But yeah, we still have grandchildren of people who only are here because they are the grandchildren of someone. So he decided to take the prize from me, saying that it's very offensive to compare the Nazis to the state of Israel. But this same guy, he also compares Hamas to the Nazis. So, you know, so it's basically what was amazing since this war started, amazing is maybe not the word, but interesting, is that you will find the same behaviors, the same accusations from both sides, but one side is allowed to, and the other not. The other side is not. So this is not acceptable for me.
I entirely see what you mean. Also, the fact, the thing about the social media and retweeting what and thinking that that people know what your whole opinion is because something is liked or disliked or you retweeted but on the other hand, going a little bit deeper into sort of freedom of speech and sort of how far or where the borders are, you could understand, of course, probably that. Jews could be extremely offended by comparing them to Nazis. And whether that would be a good thing to do or not. I mean, you're absolutely right, of course. It's interesting what you're saying. You're saying there is no right not to be offended, of course. That's the whole Charlie Hebdo legacy points out very well. You know, there's no right to not to be offended. But would you think it's a good thing to do it? Like the parents of my good friend Theo van Gogh told Theo, yes, Theo, you have the right to offend people, but it's not necessarily the right thing to do.
You know, the fact that...
not in this specific way, but just in general.
First of all, for me, the danger is to agree on that narrative, pretending that the Israeli narrative is the only one representative of Jewish people. And when there is a tweet, a person, whoever, criticizes the Israeli regime and compares it to whoever what, this doesn't mean comparing Jewish people, because there are a lot of Jewish people who don't approve the Israeli narrative, who are not even Israeli, who didn't vote for Netanyahu and Smotrich and those people, who don't feel represented by them. And but I find this whole way of thinking wrong, because I remember, for instance, Charlie Hebdo.
Which way of thinking wrong?
The way of thinking, I'm going to give an example and you will understand where I want to. When I worked in Charlie Hebdo, some people said, don't you find offensive to compare, to compare Islam to ISIS? I say, for sure, it's not the best image of Islam, but the image is given by ISIS people, not by those who make a cartoon of the whole situation. So I think that Jewish people who are sincerely concerned about their own situation, but also by other people's situation, should be offended by the image given of them by Netanyahu and Smotrich, who are killing in their name, who are committing massacres in their name. I don't think the problem is me who is tweeting about that. I'm not killing anyone. I'm not I'm only a person who gives an opinion. The most offensive stuff is the stuff happening in the name of Jewish people by a radical far-right Israeli government who is massacring civilians since more than 100 days now.
Would you say that... Would you say that Netanyahu's government is doing that in the name of Jewish people or just of the Israeli people? Because there's a big difference, of course, between that.
For me, this Israeli government, they use their own population as human shields. This is what I feel they are doing. Because today, the project that is, what is the project? The project is to lock Israeli people under more and more security, to wipe out all the Palestinians from Gaza, and then to keep occupying the West Bank. This is Netanyahu's project. I mean, they're not even hiding their project. They say that the genocidal statements are not what's missing in this whole war. You know, they said we're gonna wipe them out, we're gonna occupy Gaza, these are human animals, these were born barbarians, they were born terrorists, etc. So I think that the Jewish people who really care about their future, either as Israelis in this area of the world, or either as Jewish people who are not Israeli, but who are watching those crimes being perpetrated in the name of their religion and by people who pretend to represent them, this is what they should stand for. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I've been observing dissident Jewish voices around the world, be it the American Jewish people who demonstrated and said not in our names, be it also the very religious Jewish people who for different reasons don't approve the state of Israel, or be it people like the Israeli journalist Gideon Levy, be it like the former head of Doctors Without Borders, Ronnie Broman, and different Jewish people around the world who are against the state of Israel, who don't approve the occupation and the colonization policy. Those people actually, they are being attacked extremely aggressively by pro-Israeli trolls on social medias. So I feel that the people who take the defense of the Israeli project, their aggressivity actually, it is showing the weakness of the project they are campaigning for. I don't find this normal that in France, for instance, and everywhere in the West, they try to pass laws to say that criticizing Israel means being anti-Semitic. This will be the first time in history where we will have a state officially protected from criticism. What is that? I mean, will this still be a democracy? I don't think that anyone should accept that, and Jewish people in the first place are concerned by that, because these are people using their religion and using their name to create a whole totalitarian system where they can kill, they can ethnic cleanse, they can bomb civilians, and explain to human beings, oh, we are doing the right thing, this is good, what you're killing children is good, it's for the sake of security and humanity. No, you know, I think that this is not acceptable. I mean, it's obvious.
But putting the Jewish people and the Israeli people together shouldn't, I mean, that could be interpreted as anti-Semitism, couldn't it? Because, I mean, if you're a Dutch or French citizen who happens to be of Jewish descent, there's nothing about Netanyahu doing this or that, isn't it?
It's not me who is making the amalgam between Israel and Jewish people. The main problem of the state of Israel for me, it's not the fact that it's a state for a majority of Jewish people. It's the fact that in the laws it's an ethno-state. And for me, ethno-states means the negation of democracy. Before this whole war started, I met a lot of Palestinian people who told me, we lost. We were born in this conflict. Our parents are born in this conflict. Now we Palestinians, we just want to live. We want to have a life. We want our children to be free. So why don't they take the land, the 1948 land, but why don't they give us the Israeli citizenship? We want our kids to go to the Israeli schools. We want our kids to go to the beautiful Israeli universities. But Israel always refused. You know why? Because Israel says this is a state for Jewish people and they have to be the majority. Mm-hmm. It's not me who says this. Personally, I am French. I come from a state where the national identity is not an ethno-identity. Everyone can be French if you adhere to the values of the French nation. If you want to live with others equally, you want to vote, and you want to exercise your freedom and respect other people's freedom. But you cannot be more French than another person because you are Catholic or white or... So this is basically the logic behind the state of Israel. It's an ethno-state that acts as if there was no indigenous population in this land. And this is the root cause of the problem.
Wouldn't you say that the anti-Semitism of Europeans and North Africans and the Middle East is the root of the state of Israel?
You know, for me, the state of Israel comes as a result to anti-Semitism in Europe, sure.
Big part of the population, actually the biggest part of the population of Israel is people who came from Baghdad or
but
Yemen
they weren't
Morocco.
the founders. The state of Israel was a racist state since its founding. Because the Jewish people, the Sephardim Jewish people who were brought from Morocco, Tunisia, Yemen, even the Falasha people, from the Jewish black people from Ethiopia, they never had the same status and privileges, especially in the beginning of the founding of the state. Zionism is it's a European ideology from the end of 19th century who believed that, you know, according to religious myths, the Jewish people should found a Jewish state in this, you know, what they called a land without people for a people without land, which was a lie. For me, Jewish people should have stayed in their countries everywhere, free everywhere. We're not going to rewrite history. Now you have Jewish people who are born from the second, third generation in Israel. But why still today they have more rights than the Palestinians? Why a Jewish person from Ukraine, from Poland, from France can go tomorrow and go to Tel Aviv, go to Jerusalem, while a Palestinian who is born 6 kilometers from Jerusalem, sometimes he never saw Jerusalem. And he is also, his grandpa is from there. This is not an acceptable situation.
You have problems saying this in France?
Yes.
Yeah? And,
yes.
and what, like we talked about the Simone Veil Prize, in what ways?
In France, many people lost their jobs because they spoke out for Palestine. I have friends who their son, he is 14 years old, he is a mid-school boy. He was investigated by the police because of saying something pro-Palestinian in school. And actually this boy, his dad is French and his mom is Palestinian. So even the French people who are from a Palestinian origin, they are being doxxed in the social medias. They are being doxxed to their employers. Any public person who stood up publicly for Palestine, they were punished in some way. Journalists in the French TV who dared doing their job and asking Israeli leaders certain questions, they were two French journalists were fired. There is a French champion of basketball she was excluded. She was a member of the Olympic Committee for the Olympic Games in Paris 2024. She was excluded from the Olympic Committee because she stood for Palestine. Me, for instance, since I came out as pro-Palestinian, TV channels don't invite me anymore. So this is basically what's happening. And even the French TV, for instance, the French TV would show you, for instance, Israeli soldiers. They will humanize the soldier. You will see pictures of him with his mom, who loves him, pictures of his room, his girlfriend. But when they talk about the more than 30,000 Palestinians killed, you would see stones and broken buildings. You see no faces. They are totally dehumanized. So this became very obvious with this war. Really, it became obvious. And for me, it's shocking because I see no other explanation to that than racism. You know? I really don't see.
Well, being anti-Islam is not racist, isn't it?
Being anti any religion, as a religion, as an ideology, shouldn't be racist because religions are not a race.
No.
I mean, if someone is against, if someone criticizes Christianism, let's say, it doesn't mean they're being racist against any.
No.
Is there a Christian race? I'm not sure. So criticizing Islam normally is not racist, but this doesn't exclude that some people who criticize religions might do it because they have racist feelings. And this is also for instance, France bans pro-Palestinian demonstrations because they've been repeating for years that pro-Palestinian demonstrations are anti-Semitic. I'm sure there are some pro-Palestinian people who are anti-Semitic, but this doesn't mean that standing for Palestine is anti-Semitic. There are also pro-Israeli people who are racist. Like, honestly, if there is one last Arab or Muslim person in the world to be called Islamist, maybe it's me, you know. I was the one working at Charlie Hebdo.
That's why I'm asking you about religion and racism, of course.
Yeah, and yet when I spoke for Palestine, people called me terrorist, Hamas. Some people even said, "Oh, who gave the address to the Kwashi brothers?" So can you imagine the amount of racism?
You mean the brothers who killed
my colleagues,
your colleagues, who are being sent to jail for their. One of them died, the other is sent to jail for their terrorist attack.
No, both of them were killed actually by the French police. So pro-Israeli people cannot see in me anything else than the potential Muslim terrorist who, because she is speaking for Gaza, she must have given the code of the building to the Kwashi brothers. You know why? Because they're all the same.
The code of the building leading up to the elevator and the stairs going up to the editorial rooms of Charlie Hebdo. Yeah.
So basically, I see no moral superiority from any side here, and people who were lecturing us for years about democracy, free speech, equality, secularism, blah, blah, blah. I observed some of them here not being able to take 2 centimeters of distance with the narrative of the Israeli army. Yeah.
This sort of counter image, which you're really able to observe, because you came out very radically against radical Islam, and now you come out very radical in favor of the Palestinian people. It's sort of a mirror image described. So first you lived through a period in your life where you were abused verbally and had to be protected because of the one side of the narrative, and now of the other side of the narrative. It's very depressing, of course, that there's two sort of that if you move from the one side to the other, that nobody sees that it's sort of a mirror image.
Well, before I was accused on Twitter of being paid by the Mossad. Now I'm accused of being paid by Qatar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a very smart woman, basically, if I know how to get paid from both sides, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just the same people. This is the kind of hatred you receive because they, and this is, by the way, very misogynistic, because in both cases, they don't see you as being able to have your own thinking as a woman. You know, there must be some men behind either the Mossad or the Qatar, you know.
And do you have any answer to that problem? Because this problem of radicalization and of splitting society over a sort of an imagined image of your enemy. Now that you've seen both sides, sort of this discourse, and maybe there are many more sides, maybe there are hundreds of sides, but you've seen 2. Do you have any answer to that? Is there something we could do or imagine doing?
Well, for me, it was a very sad 3 months, because I kind of saw this illusion that I also believed, and I understood that there is a lot of self-love that is needed there.
Needed where?
Self-love, you know. I realized that people who stand for Palestine, actually, they are shut off now in the Western countries for years. They are being diabolisés, we say in French, you know, like they are being described as the devil, demonized. And I think that even a part of them have believed this lie. Sorry. So, for instance, I could make a comparison very easily. When my colleagues in Charlie Hebdo were killed by the Kouachi brothers, we received a lot of solidarity and sympathy, and I feel a lot of gratitude for that. But the same people couldn't have any empathy for the more than 100 Palestinian journalists who were sniped basically by the Israeli army. The same profession, the same people who said it's wrong to kill journalists, which is true, it's always wrong to kill journalists. So I saw that as a Charlie Hebdo, we were supported by this part of the Western societies, but don't they also, the Gazan journalists deserve this solidarity, and they didn't get it. So what's in really behind there? Why is a part of the Western societies is not just able to see Palestinians as humans?
And what would be your answer to why? So how? Because, moving from the one side to the other, you can demonize the other side as much as you want, and it actually works. You can get political power out of it, and you can by demonizing other people. We know that it works.
Yeah.
It works for I would say for Hamas. It works for Netanyahu. It works for left and it works for right.
Yeah. This is why we should stand to simple facts I think that comparing, you know, till now everyone believed the lie that, oh, Israel is a democracy and the other side are dangerous terrorists. So Israel is doing what's necessary. Today we understand that Israel is at least as terrorist as Hamas, if not more, because in terms of numbers, they kill much more. But the origin of the problem is not Hamas being evil. It's not Israel being evil. It's occupation. It's that there is a theft of land. There is a situation of imprisonment of a whole population. There is a situation of stealing the homes, stealing the lands, colonization in the West Bank. And such a situation can only give ugly, violent events. Nothing beautiful is going to grow in there because the root cause has to be addressed. The root cause is occupation.
To me, Hamas looks very much like the Al-Qaeda people who go around killing Charlie Hebdo or my good friend Theo van Gogh. To me, they look very much the same.
It's very different, though. Very different. I'm going to tell you why. Hamas is an Islamist movement, sure.
Which is probably, you know, you've been denouncing these sort of movements for...
Yeah, but it's very different. For me, the international organizations of terrorism, such as ISIS or Al-Qaeda, can more be compared in a different way to Israel than Hamas can be compared to them. You know why? Because Hamas did never, ever do a single terrorist operation outside of Israel that occupies them. Hamas did not do any terrorist attacks in Paris or Berlin or Amsterdam. ISIS did, Al-Qaeda did. For me, ISIS is a group of people who came from different countries in the world: Tunisia, the Netherlands, Canada, France, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Belgium, to steal other people's homes and genocide them, which they did to the Christian people in Syria and to the Yazidis and the Kurds. And the other people who did this are Israelis. They are also a group of people who came from different places of the world with a religious project, who stole the homes and the lands from other people and cleansed the land from them. So for me, Hamas, we can say whatever we want about them, about their ideology, about their methodology, and for sure Hamas has terrorist modus operandi, because they attack civilians also, just as the Israelis also attack civilians. But Hamas are an indigenous movement of resistance using a terrorist modus operandi. And this can in no way be compared to concurrent terrorist movements such as ISIS, who came from different worlds and stole the land from someone else. This, Israel did it. Hamas didn't steal anyone's land.
And the fact that they are a terrorist movement and fundamentalist Islamist makes them, to me, look a lot like other of those movements.
Hamas...
Like for instance, the Lebanese Nasrallah's movement in Lebanon or Iran's regime.
The difference is occupation. You know, now we've seen that there are crazy religious movements. I personally was shocked to discover the religious craziness in Israel. I personally was shocked to discover that Israel held Palestinian children in jail without trials. I was shocked to see that there are crazy rabbis who write prayers on missiles before sending them to Palestinian civilians.
Extreme right in Netanyahu's government. And
I personally knew that this kind of religious craziness existed in Islamist movements, but now I was discovering exactly the same thing in Israel, with the difference that Israel is called a democracy, they have the nuclear weapon, and they call themselves a democracy. At least Hamas never pretended to be a democracy, and they are not a threat for humanity. Hamas, they just want their country back. They don't want to conquer other sides of the planet, and they don't want...
Wouldn't you say that they're like hand in glove with the Iranian regime and threatening the whole region in that respect?
No, for me, Israel is threatening the region, not Hamas. Hamas, listen.
And Iran?
I wish Hamas never existed.
Because they're occupying their own people.
You cannot occupy your own people. Their own people are occupied by Israel. There is an Israeli occupation, and if you take in the West Bank, it's true occupation and colonization. In Gaza, it's more like maintaining people behind walls and literally counting calories on what they can eat. When we know that jam is banned from Gaza, that chocolate can be banned from Gaza if Israelis decided, that they can cut the water and electricity to the Palestinians, that if I go to Gaza with a toy for kids that has a remote control, this is banned by Israelis. They are literally controlling what the people of Gaza can eat, when they can move, what they can do. So there is an occupation situation, and Israel is basically saying, yeah, but the people we occupy are not Democrats. Look at them, they are ugly, they are Islamists, they are terrorists. This doesn't justify occupation.
But it says something about Hamas, of course.
I wish Hamas never existed, but what's happening in Palestine is that the Palestinians really, they showed that they wanted a solution for their issue. They believed in the Oslo process. They shook the Israelis' hands and they said, okay, let's proceed. We want our own state. What Israel did since then, they helped Hamas arrive to power in Gaza to split Palestinians in order never to get a Palestinian state. And they're still saying, we will not allow a Palestinian state to happen. So when you darken the horizon for a whole people, when you deprive them from seeing any future for their children, any hope to be free one day by having their own state, what do you leave for them? You leave for them the option of armed resistance. And let me remind something, because we hear a lot of Israeli propaganda in the medias. Everyone would say in the beginning of the war, oh, Israel, they have the right to defend themselves. No, they don't have the right to defend themselves. Yeah, the international law is clear. There is nothing for an occupier such the right to defend themselves.
But they're not occupying Gaza.
They are occupying the whole land, not only Gaza.
But you would say that Israel has no right to defend itself?
No. An occupied people, people who are under occupation by the international law, have the right to resist by the means they have, including
So would you say that
including military means?
That the state of Israel should be just waiting to get a next attack, or how do you see that?
The state of Israel should abide by international law if they don't want any resistance.
So they should be just wait to get the next attack, or?
Of course.
They have no right.
This is what will happen.
Just to get it clear, they have no right to. They have no right to defend itself. Would you say so? I'm asking.
I'm going to tell you how the French media are terrible. There is a French TV team who went to cover the things. Of course, you cannot enter Gaza because Israel is not allowing. Each time they kill in Gaza, they just ban any journalists. But they take French journalists with the Israeli army to show them what they want to show. Anyway, long story short, a French guy from the French TV can finally interview a Hamas one of the Hamas guys by Zoom. And he wants to show the other side. And so when he has the Hamas guy, guess what he asks him? He asks him if he condemns the October 7th. And the Hamas guy was like, you know, you are asking Hamas, they did October 7th, and you are a French journalist asking him if he condemns. The Hamas guy said, can we sometimes just go to the door of our prison and knock it and say, hey, here there are human...
Would you agree with him?
Yes, I agree. Because I think if someone put me in a jail, I would fight. Mm-hmm. I would not accept. So as long as there is occupation, Israel should expect resistance. Mm-hmm. Did France, like, for instance, when France occupied Algeria for 130 years, when the Algerians started their war of liberation in 1954, of course the French called them terrorists. And of course the Algerian resistance killed uglily and killed some people who were French citizens and who were nice people and who didn't deserve to die.
Like the citizens of the kibbutzim who were killed?
Like the children, basically, from both sides. Who can agree with killing a civilian? But when you have a situation of occupation, it can only generate violence. It cannot. There can be no peace without justice. This is an illusion.
You can say all those things here in the Balie. You can say all those things here on internet and on television. Are you concerned that this radicalization we talked earlier about is going to make it more and more impossible to speak out?
I think that Gaza...
No, here in Amsterdam or in Paris.
Gaza...
No, I'm interviewing Zineb, and we come back to you.
What I understood when I saw this scary reality, actually, and I know it's happening in the US, in Germany, and guess what? Also in the Arab world, in certain situations, you know? In the Emirates, for instance, it's shocking for Arabs because it's an Arab country and you cannot even have a Palestinian kufi in a stadium. So people start to understand the size, the amount of pressure and the size of the illusion that we all participated in. So I understood personally that the problem of Palestine is a problem of language. We all have a Gaza inside us.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that we all have inside us a part where we agreed, in fact, to what's happening here because we agreed to not call things by their names. There is a French writer called Albert Camus who said, he has a famous sentence where he said, by not naming things, on participe au malheur du monde. You contribute, you participate to the problems in the world.
The malice in the world. Yeah,
so, So I think that we need to reestablish the language concerning Gaza, and this is why I decided to speak. This is why I decided to pay the price. No matter for me if I lose a job, if actually I lost friends, I lost networks, because I spoke for Gaza. And this shows me, like, from by experience, it points out to a totalitarianism, and it shows me the way where I have to speak and I have to say this is something not right is happening there, and invite people to speak. Because what's happening, this fear actually is what created this horrible crime we are watching today. And I think that if we care about Israeli people, we should also tell them the truth, so they come back also from this illusion, and they come back from this fear of being withdrawn and being afraid from the rest of the world. Because at the end, everyone will have to live together, and the Jewish people will have to live with the rest of humanity, and the Palestinians will also have to live with the rest of humanity. This is the only solution. So this is why I decided personally not to participate to this language anymore. I just see and I say what I feel. Like, for instance, one of the lies, and I know some people don't agree with me on that, but for me, one of the biggest lies is, oh, the two-state solution, we are for peace. Like, people avoided the conversation for decades by saying, oh, we are for two-state solution and for peace. But what's behind the two-state solution? What's behind peace? Is there justice behind? If not, so this is not a solution. So for me today, I only see one solution. It's one state for everyone. Like, Palestine is big enough for everyone, for the Jews and Arabs. Mm-hmm. And I want them to be equal everywhere. I want them to be equal and free in Gaza, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem. And if this happens one day, I think that Jerusalem will finally become Jerusalem, you know, the Jerusalem as we dream of, the Jerusalem for everyone. Because now what's happening is that Israel pretends Jerusalem is for the Jews. And this actually, the Crusaders tried it before. It didn't work, to say, oh, this is my city, it's in my book, I'm going to take it.
Would you say that you're still as much in favor of free speech as you were as a journalist for Charlie Hebdo, or even more? Or?
I am more in favor of free speech than ever. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that the countries who pretend to have free speech, actually they have a partial free speech.
And if we move a little bit into the problems we encounter with free speech, and we encounter them in the Balie very often, and you encountered them for many years. But if we, for instance, now there is, especially in the northern countries, there's sort of a cry for outlawing burning of Quran and books, religious books. You're an absolute idiot, I would say, if you would burn religious books. But how do you, from a point of view of law and free speech, how do you look upon that sort of movement?
I think that I am personally against that kind of laws. I'm against it. And I'm against all the laws that are meant to protect anyone from being offended. Mm-hmm. Because so many different things can offend so many different people, and making a law for each becomes dangerous. Mm-hmm. I also was against the memorial laws that, for instance, ban from denying denying the Holocaust. I am against that. I think that everyone should be free to say that the earth is flat. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We should be allowed to say that the earth is flat. We know it's not the case. We should be allowed to burn a book. Mm-hmm. It's ugly to burn a book. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. No. Really, I find that burning book is always really like, it's a sinister symbol. Yeah. But it shouldn't be forbidden, you know? Then why banning, then why only Quran? Then it should be the Bible, it should be any, you know, humanity has a lot of great books that people like. And
or feel offended by, or
and also, for instance, let's say, like in 2001, France voted laws to say you cannot deny the Holocaust.
Yeah, right.
We know that the Holocaust deniers, generally, they are not sympathetic guys.
No.
You know?
In general, they're Nazis or neo-Nazis.
But these laws, I find them not democratic. Mm-hmm. let us suppose I am a university, I am a scholar, I am a history researcher. I make researches and I find out that the Jewish victims of the Holocaust weren't 6 million, but 7 million. Then I violate the law, because I'm bringing a different version than the official version.
Yeah. So you should be able to research, to speak out about,
and anyone should be able to respond to those
taking it a little bit further, because of free speech, we have a lot of people actually repeating sort of the narrative and lies put out by Moscow. We have Marine Le Pen, we have Thierry Baudet here, who repeat, obviously, narratives which are obviously not true and are able to repeat them, and they could hurt, you know, our democracy or our rule of law based. Well, how do it could become so far that it undermines our society, or that you could.
Well, when, of course, this example is true, and we know how much Russia can use different tools of propaganda to spread certain facts. But like when Joe Biden speaks about 40 beheaded babies, this was Israeli propaganda too, and it ended up being a lie. When the US said that they found mass destruction weapons in Iraq, was it really better than Putin's or whoever's propaganda? Like, these are means used by everyone. Of course, the US will tell you that they own the truth, and so Putin's media should be banned. But for me, no regime has a, sorry for this vulgar way to say it, but no regime has a clean ass. But certain regimes pretend to be the ones who embody human rights and who embody moral values. And I just find out this is not true, basically. This is really not true. It's wrong.
No, sure, but absolutely, there's no nobody in history is, you know, sort of a shining white figure only. But on the other hand, you could say by actively on the internet pushing certain narratives, you come very far. You can get Le Pen elected, or you can, or Iran is very active on the internet. So you think that we should just be strong and freedom of speech is more important than blocking it, or how do you? Is there a danger, or how do you counter that, or it's just truth will prevail?
I just trust people's intelligence, and I find that things should be allowed to be said. I think that what's dangerous is when you only allow one version of the story. This can really be dangerous. You know, for me, I grew up in Morocco, and I was having this conversation with a lot of different friends. Some of them, for instance, grew up in African countries. For us, people who grew up in regimes such as Hassan II regime or under African regimes, it's not a surprise to discover that the media's lie. But we were surprised by our French friends or American friends. It was like the first time they're discovering their media's openly lying about what's happening in Gaza. And we're like, hey, come on, guys, we know this. We know that they lie, you know. When you're born in Morocco, you don't expect the informations from TV. You know, the TV is there to show basically the king's version, you know, the official stuff. So for me, I prefer this liberalism of views, and of course, social medias are the perfect space to spread all kinds of propaganda. But people,
or insult you on it,
or insult, but you know, I am also free to block people, not to watch it. But I think that the West actually only promotes one version of the reality, while complaining about others not to respect freedom of speech. It's not respected in countries as France either.
If you compare that to Russia, how would you stand?
I don't know Russia, honestly. I don't know Russia, but I was really surprised to see, for instance, let me tell you about the war in Gaza and how it's covered in France. So the main news channel in France, BFM TV, belongs to French-Israeli billionaire Patrick Drahi. So it's French-Israeli owned, and it is in the same building as the Israeli channel I-24 News, in English, French, and Hebrew. They're in the same building because by the Israeli army to speak in I-24 News. When they finish from I-24 News, they just take the elevator and go to BFM TV. It's practical, and they comment the war.
So you would say you should not outlaw these sort of foreign. You would say.
I'm saying that the main French TV, basically, the people who educate the French opinion on the war in Gaza are Israeli generals.
So you would say, and
so,
but talking about
literally,
freedom, and talking about freedom of speech, you would say our democracy is strong enough, or our public debate is strong enough to resist sort of these mechanisms. So don't outlaw that sort of things.
I don't think it's possible to outlaw that kind of things. I think it's important to open the space for other people to say, hey, BFM is owned to Patrick Drahi, who gave that much million euros to Tzahal army because he's financing it.
Yeah.
And he is the owner of an Israeli media. It's important to say.
So you would say give space to every opinion instead of outlawing one of them, or two of them, or three of them.
And I'm saying also that all the mechanisms that are used, such as calling everyone anti-Semitic, for instance, these are mechanisms to ban freedom of speech. So
is that the same sort of mechanism as calling everybody Islamophobe?
Islamophobic. It's just the same. Because let me give you an example. You were talking about Arab regimes. In Arab regimes, they would tell you, you are not allowed to speak about that. They're doing it openly. Yeah, they tell you, you don't talk, you're not allowed.
Like in the Gulf.
You can't. But in the West, how it happens, they tell you, oh, you are anti-Semitic. You are far-right. You are sexist. You are Islamist. You are Muslim brother. You are Hamas. You are... you're hurting me. So basically, this is the tool used, and now in every
being offended. That's
being offended. Yeah, like for instance, criticizing Islam would provoke a lot of people to tell you, "I'm offended. It's my religion." Okay, well, you can be offended, but it's not my problem. It doesn't have to force me to shut off. But so in the West, you will hear this from Islamists, but in Muslim countries, it's called blasphemy, and you're just arrested because of it, or put in jail, or so. When they have the power, it's called blasphemy, and we don't have the power like in the West. They say they're offended. Israel is just doing the same, criticizing Israel inside Israel. Like they have laws now against freedom of speech. You cannot, for instance, they just passed a law. You cannot talk about the fact that in October 7th, the Israeli army bombed their own people. It was published in an Israeli newspaper, in Haaretz, but today they made a law against any Israeli person who would remind this fact. And basically this law is being used against Israelis from a Palestinian origin.
Also Haaretz from a Jewish origin.
Yeah, but here, because we are in Amsterdam, because we are in New York, because we are in Paris, Israelis cannot ban me from saying this, but they can say that I am an anti-Semitic and offended Shoah survivors, and I don't know, just to shut me off. So
just to look for a closing of our very open and frank and good conversation. Last Sunday, yesterday actually, you said you were invited, because you were invited here to the TV station Buitenhof, and you said, yes, I would apologize to somebody who is actually I thought it was very interesting. You said, I would apologize to somebody who is a Shoah survivor if I offended them. And that struck me in a way, because is there a difference, and probably there is, but between personal offending somebody or using your right of free speech? How do you see that?
Yeah, because I remember the journalist asked me this question. It was again about sharing that tweet.
Yeah, right. The one we talked about in the.
And of course, the person who said that the tweet was offensive to Shoah survivors wasn't a Shoah survivor.
No.
He was just taking the defense of Israel. And I said, if a Shoah survivor told me, "Oh, you offended me," I would apologize to that person. I don't want to offend anyone, and I have all the respect for the suffering of what those people endured. Of course, I don't want to offend them, but what's happening is that their legacy, their story is being used by other people who didn't know the same suffering and who are just using the story to justify horrible crimes, to justify Israeli crimes in Gaza.
Mm-hmm. And so you would say that there's a big difference between personally offending somebody you know or you don't know, but who's a person, or using your freedom of speech about rights or wrongs.
I mean,
which is an interesting distinction, of course.
Yeah, me as Zineb, I don't like to be offensive. It's not in my, in my
nature.
character. Yeah, exactly. I don't like offending anyone, and but I am just saying, pay attention. This is a matter of education, of dealing between people, but it does not have to become a matter of regulating the public speech, because we really need, as human beings, we need the space, the public space, to remain free for debate, including on things that we cannot say in public. I think that many people here might not agree with everything I said, but I think that many people were happy to hear a different speech about Hamas, because we are fed of the standardization of thought, with the fact that we are told this is the good thing to think and this is the bad thing to think. And I think that the war that is happening today is showing us what happens when we agree to using the wrong words for very long, and when we agree to a lie such as Israel is a democracy and the terrorists of the Palestinian terrorists are threatening it. Everyone today understood that this was a lie and that we need to restore the truth.
Like we always do, we go to the public and see whether there's people who have questions. I have left with many questions, but we could talk for a long, long time. We already did, today and on other occasions. Please, yeah, we have a microphone, so the people at home can hear you as well. Yeah.
Oh, I don't mind. I'm Bertie, from Holland. I've worked quite a lot with Israel, with Israeli people. I was there in February, and I'm not a believer, not Catholic, not Protestant, nothing. And I went with a group, religious group, because I want to see the land of the Bible, from a historical point of view. And what I noticed, and I didn't hear it in your speech, that the Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox Jews, they have a feeling of supremacy, how you say
superiority.
it? Superiority, because they think they go to save the world. We should be thankful to them, because the Messiahs will only come back when the land of Israel, when the land of the Bible, I should say, is under the prediction of the Bible laws, And that supremacy, superiority, makes that they don't see the other people as equal. They said, we can't help it that we are invited by God to do this, I was really, I couldn't say anything. We couldn't talk. And it was a nice man, He was a Dutchman. He was living for 30 years in Israel, in Jerusalem. He was invited to religious people. He was Orthodox.
I think we understand your point.
Yeah, and I think it was not in your discussion, but that's what makes Christian people all over the world who also think, well, that are the Jews. They are, God chooses them. So they are in favor of them sometimes because of the Holy Bible.
Well, I think it's very dangerous anytime we decide to create a state according to religion myths. And of course, I don't think all Israeli people think like that, but of course there are Israeli people who are at least the genocidal ones, the radicals, and they are not a minority, I should say, unfortunately. The radical thinking is very spread, and this is what we discovered with this war in Israel. So yes, there is a part of the population that totally dehumanizes Palestinians. They're not able to see them as not even their equal, but as human beings, and they truly believe that this land is their land and they're allowed to kill to get it. And the problem here is not that, because you can have that type of crazy people in all the religions. The problem is when Western democracies give them the green light and tell them, yeah, you're doing the right thing. Like, I mean, such a thing would never have been accepted in France or in the Netherlands or in Germany. If a French person speaks like that, it will be a scandal. The French people won't accept it. But for Israel, in the name of what happened before, it's being used actually to perpetrate new crimes, which I find is which I find is the biggest insult, actually, to the legacy of the Holocaust.
Yeah, you said a little bit of that before. Thank you. There's somebody.
Hi. Thank you for speaking here, first of all. There was one statement that actually surprised me a little bit. You said you lost friends because of this. And I would assume that, given your history, and you even, I think you used the word a lot or many friends, do you understand why, or why was this the line? I mean, is it that they always aligned with you because their opinions aligned as well, or was there a lot of pressure from other sources on them that they said, I'm leaving this ship right now? Do you understand what happened there?
For me, it was extremely painful, but it was also a moment of truth. And truth is always liberating. I was surprised, I was surprised to see that people that I called friends, people who came at home, we shared the drinking, the food together, they really weren't able to see Palestinian kids as human beings. So basically, people who, the day of October 7th, everyone shared the sadness, and everyone shared even the anger, and people said this is not acceptable because killing civilians is not acceptable, killing children is not acceptable. But the same people found it totally acceptable to still be killing children in Gaza. And when I spoke for Palestinians, I spoke because I wanted to tell those people, I saw you. I see your true face. You've showed it now. Because I also find it's the end of humanity if we accept that one life does not equal one life, that one kid doesn't equal another kid. And yes, I had friends who they don't talk to me anymore. And they even attack me in social media saying, oh, she is, how dare she? We supported her. You know, it's as if, I don't know if you have this here in the Netherlands, but some people consider that Israel is in the package of being French. I don't know when this happened, but like as a French person, I think in Germany they even have the law now. Before becoming German, you have to say, I recognize Israel and I worship Israel and I agree with everything Israel does. But I'm sorry, as a French, no, it's not in my package. It's a foreign state. I have the right to criticize this just as any other state, and maybe more than any other state because it's committing genocide. So I'm happy I lost those friends, actually.
Hi, it was really nice listening to you. My question refers a little bit maybe to what Yoeri already said about personal and public, how that relates with free speech, but more to the line of hate speech, and especially when you have a responsibility to a people. And I think with social media, for sure, a lot of speech that can be negative can incite a certain action. I mean, for me, comes to mind Trump and the march on the White House. And I wonder how you look at hate speech inciting something and inciting violence in such situations, not per se in this specific scenario, but yeah.
Well, hate speech is necessary in every genocide. You know, hate speech should never be taken
lightly.
Yeah. When you have calls to violence, for instance, you know, let me give the example of the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda. You had Radio Milcolin. I think it was the first time a journalist was tried by the International Penal Court, and he was life sentenced for the work. His name is Hassan Yeze, was a Rwandan journalist, and he called to killing people in Radio Milcolin. Today,
before the genocide on the Tutsis.
Yeah, because in every genocide, you need first to dehumanize people. Because if you think that someone is human, you cannot kill him. You need first to call them cockroaches, call them terrorists, call them danger for humanity, call them human animals, whatever. You need to dehumanize first. And this is where hate speech intervenes. So I think that the social medias are anyway a space where people will always express themselves and fight and insult each other. But hate speech is something very specific. When you start, for instance, saying that all those people are like that and they deserve that thing, I think there are laws against that. But for instance, I've been observing now, the French state does not respect this when it comes to calling to hatred and to violence towards Palestinians. We have had so many hateful statements in the French TV. We even had like mothers of Israeli soldiers, because I remind that 4,000 French Israeli soldiers went to fight in the Israeli army. They are participating in the genocide, 4,000. And some of them were killed, of course, during the war. So you had, for instance, one of the moms in the French TV saying, let us press the nuclear button and send it to Gaza. No one deserves to live in Gaza. You have that speech in France. And the French authorities are doing nothing about it, strictly nothing.
And how would you look upon the other part of the question, smearing a synagogue with with a Nazi symbol or something like that.
Oh, this is punished by the law.
Yeah, that's not free speech. That's
and for me it shouldn't be free speech.
Yeah.
But when, for instance, if you do any anti-Semitic speech in France, you will have pursuits by the law.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
Thank you. The woman over there. That
Hi, good evening. I would like to have a question. It was very sorry to hear that your prize, the prize, the Simone Veil Prize, has been withdrawn. But it was given back to you with the question: who would you give it to as a prize of encouragement?
right. if you had the prize and could pass it on, yeah.
I would give it to my colleagues, the Palestinian journalists, this year, because for me, they deserve this year all the prizes of courage. They have shown us as journalists, they have reminded us that, you know, that our profession is a profession that this is what it should be, you know, standing under the bombs, feeling hungry, having sometimes your family killed, that you're literally watching your family alive being killed, but still talking about what's happening in your country. For me, definitely the Palestinian journalists this year deserve it, you know.
I think we're looking for a close, but maybe the lady in front of her.
Hi, thank you very much for what you are telling to us. I would like to ask you a question about, do you think that what you're living right now and, you know, this banning of being able to say what you want, this banning of freedom of speech has also, is it more strict upon you because of being a woman, and maybe even more strict because you're you were living in France as a woman not from France? I would like to link it also to what you said earlier. You said in France you cannot be more French, and I had some doubts about that myself, because you are saying that people are not treated equally. So how can you relate those two things by being a woman and then also a woman of color in France?
To be honest, I don't know if statistically it means something. I think it's not just a chance, but most of the people who lost positions or were fired from their jobs in France were either black or Arab. That's a fact, it's true. I don't say that white French people are not there also for Palestine. They also stand for Palestine. There are many of them who also pay the price differently. But the attacks were really, really rude and aggressive towards black people and Arab people. It's because this ugly war has revealed all this racism that we didn't really see before, or maybe we didn't want to see it as we're seeing it now. Maybe now we're seeing it more clearly because it's a matter of killing. You know, there is a lot of blood, and it's about the human life. And even in respecting human life, we see that still for certain people, for the racist, human lives are not equal. And so this makes us understand many things that happened before. For instance, you know, why in Africa many genocides are happening and no one gives a damn about it. Maybe just because in the perception of the public opinion, you know, black people killing each other, it's normal, you know, it's a routine. And also, you know, the image of Arab people, actually, I find out that it didn't really evolve. They're still perceived as evil, you know, evil people. So even when 100 journalists are killed in these horrible conditions, people still cannot really see them as journalists. So no, they are just, I don't know, you know, they just work for the media, but they're not really journalists. So, yes, terrible, terrible, terrible racism, terrible racism. And I'm really deeply sad for France, because France has a particular situation. France has the biggest Muslim community in West Europe and the biggest Jewish community. They have both. But of course, the Muslim community is much bigger than the Jewish community. But they're just not considered the same. So I think, I tried to understand what does it, I think that for French people, Jewish people are white, so they relate more to them than they are able to really feel for Arabs. And it's sad because a lot of French people from Arab origin, they tell me we want to leave the country. We can't stay here in a country where we cannot be who we are, where we cannot say our political opinions at work, etc. And yeah, it's really sad.
Actually, you do hear the same often nowadays by Dutch people of Jewish descent. Exactly the same sort of, and probably in France as well, which is doubly sad in a way, but that both communities feel like they might have to leave the country.
I think it's not easy to be Jewish either since the war started. Okay, I feel a lot of compassion for Jewish people because I think that every Jewish person in the world is, you know, feels involved in some way in what happens, you know. Either they agree or they don't agree, either they identify as Israeli or not, but I think there is something that deeply touches Jewish people and their awareness, as much as, you know, it's also the same for Arab people. For Arab people also, you know, this is a genocide committed against Arab people and the world is watching. And so for Arab people, it was very hard to see how much we are hated, you know? So I understand that feeling, but I think that the initial, how do you say le péché originel in English? You know, the original sin.
The root, yeah.
Yeah, the original sin in this story is that what happened during the Holocaust wasn't healed properly. Like, I don't find it's normal in the world of today that Jewish people still live with the fear. It means that something wasn't healed. If we fully heal the Holocaust wound, if there is full forgiveness and full reliance and confidence from the Jewish people in the rest of the planet that they will be okay, that they will be fine, that nothing is going to touch them again, that this madness of genociding anyone will never happen again, people will finally maybe relax and just drop the walls and drop the security and just live together, you know, just deal with the important things in their lives. I think that Jewish people are still deeply traumatized, and if you are coming with a whole state project that is built on the trauma, on the fear, you can only contaminate all the surrounding with that fear. This fear needs to be addressed. I think that Jewish people should be safe and feel safe everywhere in the world, and they shouldn't believe in this lie that actually by locking themselves in a state in the middle of people who are not friendly to them. And I understand those people in not being friendly to such a project. I mean, such a project will never work. The only solution is true brotherhood between people, and it's just humanizing the others and understanding, you know, the Israeli people should only understand that the horrible suffering they have had does not give them more rights on this land than anyone else, and than the indigenous people particularly.
Thank you very much. Zineb El Rhazoui, thank you for coming here. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you for listening to me.
Coming all the way from the Gulf via Paris to the Balie to speak. It's obvious that free speech is not for the faint-hearted. It's an important thing. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to understand. It's a difficult thing to appreciate. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And thank you very much for being here, for talking to me. It's wonderful to talk to you. And thank you for coming here. I hope to see you soon on any day in the Balie, if you please. Thank you very much.